Hello, me again. So, making things a bit easier now, I've got a low save functionality in the level editor. This makes it a lot easier. I've just got a standard level that I'm loading at the moment. If I just load, so here I've got a drop down with basically save slots. It's going to take a bit more work to allow, level names and so forth. So it basically, interestingly, the format is simply the room name, whether it's been flipped horizontally or vertically, and the room position. That's all the information that's stored. So if I just go load here, I've saved this level already, so I no longer have to drag stuff about so much, because at the moment I'm really just testing the same shit really. So if I hit run, you can see that, well, I've sort of improved the aiming and so forth. There's still quite a lot of work to do with it, but it's more functional now. This guy is actually reactions too quick, so if an enemy appears the other way, he'll just instantly snap to it. It looks a bit weird. There's a few things that look odd. It's actually a bit weird, including the fact that he's fighting cubes. Yeah, down here, another thing you can see that I've done in red here, I've actually drawn that FOV, the visible regions. And so this big room here gives an example. So if I scroll off to the right, I've also fixed the scrolling, so my mouse no longer scrolls. I have to scroll with the keys, which makes things a hell of a lot easier when I'm switching over here. It doesn't start scrolling off. You can see that as I move over here, that this room gets covered up, and that's using this red grid to calculate that, as I mentioned in the previous video. I'm hoping now to actually, as well as having these little crawling enemies, which he's actually defeated all of them. Yeah, so I added some damage in. So if I just run this again, if I just load and run this again, and try and click on one of these select one of these creatures. Where is it? That's unit. Yeah, crawler. You can see they've got health 3 down here. Now the way the firing is working is that it's an instant hit weapon now. I think I can't remember the previous video whether I had firing, but it's instant hit now, because the delayed hit just isn't going to work, because by the time the shot reaches the target could have moved. So instant hits weapon means that I can entirely just decide whether there's a hit or a miss. So I think this guy's accuracy is like 90%. It's not based on range at the moment. 90% chance of hitting. There needs to be some better feedback for whether an enemy's been hit or whether there's a miss. At the moment, you can't really see, but if there's a miss, the shot will deliberately pass through the enemy. I've got this other issue as well. It's an instant hit weapon, and this beam fades instantly. But you can see that I'm not really sure how to fix this. But the enemy unit moves on, and the beam's left hanging in midair. I think I might have to just make the beam go through the enemies and display a hit as some other sort of icon. Another possibility I was thinking of is that units don't actually fire unless they're going to get a hit. It seems a bit weird though, so maybe not do that. But I'm now thinking of adding some flying enemies in. I need to start looking at making the maps a bit more varied, because I'm getting a bit bored of seeing the same old corridors and rooms. So what I've got, if I just run the level editor again, all I've got available, and I was going to replace these with images, so that's why I started with letters. Some of these are ladder pieces which are no longer, well, I can't even select them, it seems, are no longer really in the game. I decided not to have ladders, or at least not to have them for a while. And then, oh yeah, of course, elevators. I should mention elevators. I've changed how elevators work, because it was too complicated before, and it wasn't consistent with the way the game is going to work. So if I just throw in another corridor here, and what else do I need? I'd just put a staircase in, I think. I can also have stairs going down now, and it works with the field of view stuff. What I want to do in terms of extending the level design is actually have an outside area, so a surface, and that's probably going to be more procedurally generated. At the moment, these pieces are very static, like this staircase. it would be kind of nice if I could have an ability in the editor to stretch. Something seems to be getting some error down here. This doesn't bode well. I think it's just the selection indicator. I've managed to delete it somehow. Doesn't matter. Yeah, it'd be nice if I could actually stretch corridor and have it dynamically generate based on distance. But that's kind of stuff that's a bit kind of beyond me. That's kind of next century tech. So for now, I'm going to have fixed size pieces, and they just stick together. I haven't tried creating a really huge map. I'm quite interested in seeing when the level performance falls over, but yeah, that's another one for later. So doors are obviously, I think I showed in the last video, doors working, but I might as well just run through that again. So if I run this now, I get to see if there's any bugs. I don't think I've made a level this large yet, and I didn't save it. That's okay. So this guy's going to just shoot that enemy. So if I open this door, can I? Yeah. Let's just run past. The other thing I did is when you run now, I think before the unit tried to fire. So basically the player's command overrides what the unit does. In fact, I want to have it so when the unit runs up the stairs, as soon as the unit sees an enemy, it will stop. So basically cancels the move order, because I think that's necessary, because if you tell your unit to move across the map, a unit encounters some sort of hostile creature, you don't want the unit just to run through them and get killed. So the way elevators is going to work now is similar to doors. You need a unit close, and there'll be some sort of icon that appears, and then you'd click somewhere to call the elevator to that floor. And once the elevator's arrived, you can then place the unit on the elevator. I've actually again changed the way the path following works and navigation works, so that there's no special elevator special case now. Elevator waypoints work just like any other waypoint. One thing you can't do is tell your unit to move down here. You now actually have to purposely, and I think on the elevator, have I added that? Yeah, I started to try and add a button as a sort of overlay that you could click. I don't know if it even works. Oh, it does work. And then that would be kind of a down button. It needs to actually be a proper overlay in the UI, maybe glowing a bit. Obviously that just looks crap. And the down arrow would have obviously make the elevator move to the floor below, because potentially you might not be able to see the floor below. At the moment you can see the entire elevator shaft, but if it's enclosed, I might change that. And then once you reach the floor, you can then move the units off. The idea of this is that elevators will work like doors, in that you need units on them or near them in order to operate them. So if you want to move the elevator about, you either need to have a unit at a call button, or there needs to be a unit on the elevator. Then you can have control. It does mean that in order to get to another floor, you can't just say, hey, move up there. You have to actually take the units and move them onto the elevator, and then order the elevator. You can even maybe, like here, click another stop and it'll go there. But I think that's fine, because elevator use isn't going to be too heavy. In fact, I really don't know why I tried such a complicated implementation previously, where you could actually select a different floor and the units would figure out to call the elevators and so forth. It just seems unnecessary. I don't know if there's any more enemies yet. Let's just go down here and have a look. No, that's the end of the level. I'm interested to make an outside area of the map, largely because, well, I want sort of flying units, but I want to see how the field of view stuff works in a large area. I suppose I could just make a very large room, and I am planning to have large rooms, maybe like caves or something. But I think an outside area, maybe at the beginning of the game, would be quite good. There seems to be an issue with the waypoint there. If you want to shift to a different position on the elevator, it looks like the unit first gets off the elevator. You can probably see why that's the case if I click on the elevator. Okay, so these are the navigation points that the room has. I haven't actually created the widget stuff for the Unity editor to display the ones that are part of the elevator. Probably won't bother either. They're just wired up incorrectly. They're all wired up, all the different positions are wired up to the stop when the elevator arrives, which is why you can leave. But they're not wired up to each other, so the route finding, the path finding, is not finding a simple route between these two nodes. It's funny how it's kind of more complicated than it needs to be, really. I could do with improving the look of some of these rooms as well. Yeah, that's about it for now. So you can see in the red here, I think I mentioned it before, the visibility area, including the door. So you can see the door, the reason why there's two very thin sets of triangles there is that when the door closes, which I think I'll have to get up, I'm not going to, yeah, I'll look at the one down here. When the door closes, I need the door to actually act as the kind of, to basically this red edge here is then told to block light, effectively, or block vision. Yeah, so one thing I could actually look at next is to try and add some animation, the model for the effectively the little alien creatures, the ones I've called crawlers at the moment. I think I'm just going to maybe look around for some sort of temporary, sort of free model somewhere that looks kind of alien-y, like a little creature, whatever that is, and see how that works. I guess all I really need is a run animation, a move animation, an idle animation possibly, although I could keep them just moving about, and possibly an attack animation. I probably need to look at yeah, maybe look at enemy AI in combat next. As well as also along the lines of enemies, looking at their sort of AI in general, navigation and spawning and so forth. One thing I'm going to look at as well is the actual campaign level. I'll probably talk about that in a video when I've actually done something on it. Oh look, I've got an editor there, interesting one, missing link, sort of evolutionary error. So I've put this in here as something that basically is this should not happen. So I'm quite interested to try and figure out what's happened there. Anyway, that's it for now. So see ya.